We live. We live. What's up, y'all? Soul Expression here. Welcome back to this YouTube channel and welcome to the Inner Storyteller um, pre-hype series, the hype before the hype series of interviews where we're gonna kind of talk about the content, the philosophy, the contribution of the inner storyteller to the world. And I have a very, very, very special guest, somebody who has inspired me so much over the last few months that I actually wrote his name into the book itself. Um, a brother by the name of Will Keller. Will Keller is a multifaceted individual, as they sometimes like to say, which I don't really know ever what that means. But he's a presenter, a writer, prolific writer, I would say, prolific presenter, um, into healing and hydrogen water sales and getting people right with the coherence of mind, body, spirit, essence, and after today, mind, body, spirit, essence, and story, because we are going to get deep into the philosophy of the inner storyteller. Mr. Will Keller, how you doing today, brother? Oh, I think you got muted.
Yep, that's my bad.
That's how
Appreciate
good we
that.
doing. It's all right.
Yeah,
Nah, what's
yep.
happening,
I,
bro?
I forgot I even muted it. Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, brother. It's a pleasure. I love what you're doing, and I'm excited to connect with you.
Oh, thanks, man. As a quick note, I definitely love what you're doing as well. I was live and in the comments for the hidden order of the universe, your pi and phi kind of breakdown, which really was just like a breakdown of the behavioral sciences with some mathematical background.
Hmm.
Definitely loved that presentation. And
Appreciate that.
the spirit of fire, super hard. And then I caught the replay of the season of sacrifice, right?
Excellent.
And the replay of the where you were in person in a different country, blueprint, the blueprint video.
Yeah, that was in Morelia, Mexico, for the People's Reset, hosted by Derek Bros. Fantastic event. Had a great time that whole week, and yeah, it's solid presentation on natural law.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, man, you excited to dive into some of this inner storyteller gobbledygook that I got cooked up for you today?
Yeah, I have your previous book, which I devoured and loved it. You're a fantastic author and writer yourself.
Oh,
Um,
dude, thank you.
so, yeah, so when you mentioned that you had this new project, this new book, I was like, oh man, let's do it. And then you wanted to have me on and have a discussion, and I'm extremely excited. So I think this is going to be intriguing, inspiring, fun, and looking forward to it.
It definitely is. I can't wait to get into some of these questions. I still got a couple more housekeeping things first. But even
Cool.
before that, what did you think about culture control? Do you remember anything? I mean, I know you probably are busy a lot. You probably pretty busy, brother. If you haven't touched it in 2 3 months, then no pressure. But what did you think about it? Culture
No,
control.
I thought it was really, really good. I mean, I'm a reader is one of my passions, one of my main passions later in life. When I was younger, I actually refused to read. It's so idiotic. But as I got into my 30s and now into my mid 40s, reading has been a huge part of my life. It's meditative. I love I mean, a full spectrum, but it has the message, right? The information has to be something to get my wheels turning. And we hear this category talked about so much, but I love the perspective that you brought from there. It's very holistic and a very accurate perception on what culture is, and how it's being used as a weapon and all the other facets of culture. Most people immediately go to either the negative aspects of what culture is. For me personally, it's definitely a neutral, inherent uh, relationship that we are all going to have, but it's the condition and the essence of that relationship that I think is important. And I highly recommend people check that out. It's an easy read, and I mean that as in it flows really well. And that's great.
Word. Thank you. I spent the most time on the historical aspects of that book, because the philosophy aspects just downloaded through me, not even to me, downloaded to the page through these fingers. Um, but the Lloyd Pye going through some of the things that he brought in some of his presentations as far as the historicities, how we may be living amongst the Bigfoots still to this day, which with his breakdown, I believe him. I don't know. I haven't seen one myself. Wasn't there. I wasn't in the boardroom when they chose to hide this information, if they did, but I definitely think that what he said makes sense. I think the footprints and stuff make sense. So I'm like, okay, it is what it is. Um,
Absolutely. Lloyd
but
Pye's got some fantastic work.
hmm,
And just a shout out. I
oh, boom,
keep that
boom.
up
He's
in
got the culture
studio
control. He's not
for
faking it,
active.
people. He's not faking it.
There's my bookmark right there.
Look,
So it's great, man. Well
nah,
done.
for sure.
I'm excited for the inner storyteller.
And on that point, this book um, has a lot less academic historicity. Here's first, second, third. Here's exactly what happened. It has a lot less of that. A lot less need for citations and all of that good stuff. Which nothing against the academic, MLA format heads out there. You guys are
Mhm.
great, and without you, we wouldn't have so much advancement, especially in technology. So, and like medical practice and things like that, which actually works. So we appreciate the academics. But I approached this book from what I would call an ontological standpoint. And for the audience, ontological is just the super fundamental, bare bones building blocks of a thing, of a topic or a physical thing. So if I'm talking about the molecules that make up a certain solution, then that's the ontological explanation of that solution. If you have to put this molecule with this molecule at this ratio, that's like an ontological look. Or for a concept like the inner storyteller, which is not a new concept, but it may be a new framework coming through me for this concept. I talk about exactly how the mind is both targeted and designed to align itself with their agenda. Okay, we are kind of biologically set up in such a way that if an evil group 50,000 years ago, a small group of people that were very um, sensitive and observant to how we interact and how intelligent beings interact with one another, if 20,000, 50,000 years ago, this small group of people decided to start practicing how to manipulate people to do certain behaviors again and again in their favor and in those people's that's doing the actions detriment, then 50 years later from then, we may end up at a situation that we are now. So this is culture control kind of prelogue, the building blocks of how culture is controlled from the inside out, and then put into book form that advances one's understanding of what the information in culture control itself, if that makes
Fan-
any sense.
yes, fantastic, man. That's awesome.
So there's 10 parts to it, and the first part one, is called the contradiction. Basically, I open this work by looking at a contradiction in the Abrahamic texts, and specifically the Bible, because I'm most familiar with it, not because the Bible is uniquely flawed or anything like that. But there's a contradiction that I think a lot of people can feel, even if they haven't put it into any words yet. And to explain it a little bit, on one hand, there's real truth, there's real deep moral conscience in the example of Christ, as well as in some of the laws laid down by the God in the Bible. On the other hand, aside from the real living truth in some of the text, in a lot of the text, I'll even say, there are religious systems and frameworks for what cherry picked parts of the text may mean, built around said truth, which are designed to train fear, obedience, um, the hierarchy thought process, right, where you're automatically thinking in terms of who's the boss instead of freedom, and instead of being present in the now, what's going on, being observant, and then moving from the truth of what is. And I also get into how these sacred stories, some examples like the Garden of Eden, the Christmas story when Jesus was born, things like that. How these stories, specifically, how the choices of what is claimed to be the ultimate creator can shape people very deeply before they're old enough and mature enough to re-examine those stories for themselves and what they were doing in their younger minds for themselves. And so you haven't read this material yet, but you did see me do the audiobook, the video series version of part one. And so my question.
Oh, I think your video froze for a quick second. Let's see if it comes back online. People in the chat, thanks for joining. Let me know if the whole stream froze or if it was just Soul's camera. Soul, if you can hear this, you might want to exit and then come back in. That kind of refreshes the browser studio link. There we go. All right, give us a few minutes. Soul will come back in. Yep, he said his laptop restarted for a quick second. Yeah, so thanks for people joining in the chat. This is going to be very interesting. Soul has some fantastic work. I highly recommend people check out his content. He was also a presenter at the recent Freedom Under Natural Law conference. His presentation was Religion, the Original PSYOP. Really good visuals and editing on that video. So that was great. I think he did a really good job. What's up, Nick? Good seeing you, brother. Yeah, he had to reboot, so he'll be on in just a few seconds. Okay. Yeah, Inner Storyteller. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but I am wearing my Final Fantasy shirt. That's right. Let's go ahead and that's the original.
Okay.
There we go. Back.
All right, we're back. I'm going to remove the the background because I think that's just consuming too many computer resources
Cool.
for
sucking up some
my
bandwidth.
little laptop.
Yeah, no worries.
For sure. Thank you. Okay. We back, everybody. I hope we back. Let me make sure I'm streaming to my channel. Yes, I am. Okay. Cool.
Excellent.
We are back. So my actual question is, how can a story or a tradition contain real truth, but still shape people in ways that may not lead them toward freedom, which is supposed to be hand in hand with truth?
Yeah, great question. Story in itself is, as we're going to kind of probably explain throughout this whole episode on the power, the empowering of story, it will always exist as long as humans draw breath, for sure. This is part of the innate capability of humans for us to observe and communicate with each other and explain things. So story. Your question was, how can it be utilized to achieve freedom or to move towards freedom?
how can a story like contain truth but still lead people, be used by culture, if you will, or used
Sure.
by the powers that be to steer people away from truth or to steer people away from freedom?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is done through all of the cultural religions. It's done in even things that we wouldn't consider outside of cultural religions, like the scientific, academia, education, everything, right? In every facet, there are elements of truth in there, and then there's a lot of falsity wrapped up pretty much. You look at it as almost an 80-20 or a 90-10. 90 being falsity and deception and misdirection, and the 90% being the misdirection and the 10% being the truth, right? That core. This is what a truth seeker is all about. This is what intended for someone to actually apply that logic and intuition and reason to discover that essence of truth. First and foremost, truth is eternal and it's objective and universal. So it is timeless, right? And in the cultural religions specifically, this is one of the main reasons why these traditions have been relevant or popular for so long, is because of the core essence of truth, which resonates within people. Now, the majority of people might not know that, or what that core truth is. Something just resonates with them and they can relate to it, because it's not if you can't relate to it, and if it's not applicable in life, then it's not part of truth. This is the whole one of the main utilities of truth itself. Now, I mean, we can even expand this outside of religion and looking at, just human relations and, how society operates. We can have systems like government, right, where there is a core aspect of truth there, meaning that, yes, human beings are going to come together to create systems. Certain aspects of those systems might work and they might be moral, right? But then, of course, the whole foundation and that 90% of misdirection and immorality and criminality is wrapped up within
Yeah,
that body of
yeah,
information. So yeah, it's, if I had to sum it up, it's 100% misdirection. It's you're pointing to a general direction or an orientation that we want to go, but the means to the ends is absolutely obfuscated, and a lot of harm can be incorporated in there. And not to mention a lot of wasted time. Just think
mm,
about how many lives and generations, through the epochs have been wasted or been applied to the condition of slavery throughout the millennia, right? So yeah, it has a lot of traps and snares, and it is one of the main tool that the social engineers utilize, for sure.
absolutely. And within this tool of story, we have something that I explore in great depth in part two of the inner storyteller, which is controlled opposition. And what I call subconscious controlled opposition as
Mm.
two separate super powerful weapons. So there's controlled opposition, which is the exoteric, and then the subconscious controlled opposition, which is actually performed by us regular people, not me and Will, but us regular people on our level of influence and power and financial standing and whatnot. Uh, we do the subconscious controlled opposition. And actually, before I read my little prompting question, there was an analogy that popped up from what you were just saying of somebody giving someone that's hungry a bunch of seeds and saying, "Go plant these seeds, or go spread these seeds, spread them out." And basically, this guy lives in a winter wasteland, and
Hmm.
so it's like, I'll give you something that's aligned with truth and rhetoric. I'm giving you seeds so you can feed your family for the rest of eternity. But I'm not acknowledging your environment. I'm not acknowledging your everyday, what you kind of go through. I'm not acknowledging the difference in knowledge that I may have versus what you may have, and what you may have versus what I may have, what you're ready for if I hand you a bunch of seeds. But government, will come, hi, I'm the government and I'm here to help, and they'll do something analogous like that. And sometimes it'll fall under this category of controlled opposition. So here's what I got for you. From there, in part two, I widened the lens a lot. I moved from religion into modern society and talk about controlled opposition. And what I mean is that people are often given fake forms of resistance to harmful agendas to rely on that feel real, but still keep them inside the same systems doing the harm. And I write about how Donald Trump is a perfect recent example of this concept as a whole. And I also make the point that history, the whole study of history, cannot be understood by facts and events alone. You cannot amass the perfect data set of dates, times, and events and incidents and really understand history. We have to look at moral causality when we're looking at history. We cannot ignore consequence built into the ontology of the universe in observation of history. Plus, we just don't know how many small, teeny lies are put into whatever the source is for said history. So the question boils down to, for people who are new to these ideas, like controlled opposition, subconscious controlled opposition, etc., how would you explain controlled opposition to everyday people of today?
Yeah, great question. And I do love that analogy that you talked about with the food. Really good. So, yeah, controlled opposition, and pretty much your synopsis of direct controlled opposition, and then the subconscious opposition. I agree with that 100%. And in fact, most people, when they talk about controlled opposition, they are meaning direct opposition, meaning like agents of the state or some form of conscience coherence of intervention that people are doing. When the most prevalent and the most common of the subconscious or unconscious controlled opposition is simply individuals' level of awareness that they act upon that is in opposition to truth, nature, and morality itself, right? So they are contributing to the system of control and slavery through osmosis, through their level of awareness, what they believe and how they think the world operates. So controlled opposition absolutely can be direct intervention, or it can be just through the lack of awareness individuals or a group of individuals have, where they think they are doing something, but they are actually the cause and effect factor is causing harm, or it is adding to something that they say they are not doing. Right. A lot of the alternative media kind of most recently coined the alternative mainstream media, right? It's like they think they are helping out. They are very much unconscious or subconscious controlled opposition, because they are not speaking about the causal factors that generate a certain condition, like the human condition of slavery, or how to generate freedom, right? They're not talking about those causal factors. They are focused on the effects. And because they are doing that as their medium, their main means of operation, right? They are controlled opposition 100%, right? So through the
We,
influence,
yeah, we are. Mm-hmm.
yes, exactly, 100%. Through the influence, or the social engineers influencing individuals, and this can be done through generational mind control, how people are raised from the family dynamic. That level of awareness, that worldview, is either going to contribute to ending human slavery, or it's going to advance it.
Boom. Really quick before we move on to the part three question, and for those of you listening and watching, there are 10 parts, so there will be 10 questions with 10 blurbs in this interview here. But this is the second time you mentioned uh, the condition of slavery, and I know what you mean, and the One Great Network knows what you mean.
Sure.
But could you give the baby book third grade reading level version of what do you mean by the the human condition of slavery and its
Yes,
causal factors?
that's great. Excellent. There we go. So first, let's define what slavery is. Simply slavery, and in all of its gradients, through overt chattel slavery to mind control to covert slavery, it simply is a claim of ownership upon an individual or others themselves, right? So having that definition is critical. When we look at the human condition, right, we are obviously individuals, and the sum total of those individuals, you get a collective or the aggregate. And this is how we can observe what is going on in the world from a wide bird's eye scope, and we can understand what that condition is. Are there systems that are making a claim of ownership upon person, persons, or their property? Absolutely. That is called government. Religion does this as well. And there are individuals that believe in this system and actually act upon that to enforce that false claim of ownership.
Right.
And so that simply, just because that exists and at a certain level, that 100% is a condition or the state of slavery itself.
Right. And if the fruits of our acts, to add to what you're saying, if the fruits of our actions amount to basically undying obedience to these bodies, whether it's bodies of rules or bodies of people that are shouting orders, then that's absolutely slavery. And I define the term in my book as managed stagnation.
Mm.
So if it's super overt and whips and chains slavery, then the stagnation is very physical. And if it's like today's world in the cities where, we're in the city, we're kind of doing our thing and going to work and watching our own kids and stuff like that, but they can come take your house, take your kids, take your whatever at any given time. Or if you get stopped for speeding or running a stop sign when nobody was around, you could actually lose your life. Then that is a
Yep.
more mental slavery, a more of a obedience training ground kind of slavery than a whips and chains kind of slavery. So I call it managed stagnation in the book.
I like that.
And I can't wait for you to devour this one because it's just, man, I'm very proud of this work. Okay.
Fantastic. I love it.
Toot my own horn a little bit. But as I'm just so enamored by the material too because it came through me so fast. It took me years to write my first book. I wrote this one in like 5 months.
That's great. Flow state, man. I mean, when you're tapped in, that's what I call it. You're tapped in. That means you're in alignment with integrity, motivation, and inspiration. It's just going to flow.
And I just feel like God wrote this book, or Essence wrote this book. Whatever somebody's
Yeah,
favorite word is, wrote this book.
for sure.
Um,
I think, and a
so
lot of people have experienced this, maybe on smaller levels or larger levels, right? When you're in that, I mean, the New Age circles call it flow state. It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
you're in that rhythm of life where everything is kind of lining up. There's the synchronicities. Whatever you're doing is just flowing very well, and it's coming together. And that's something we could tap into.
oh yeah. All right. So the upper echelon of these questions starts at part 3 and goes until part 10. So here we go. Part 3, The Story Beneath the Story, is the title of this chapter. Part 3 moves closer to the inner storyteller itself. This is where I start showing people how to, showing how people do not just react to reality directly. First, they interpret it lightning fast, okay, at the speed of thought, which is faster than the speed of light because it's instant. And they attach meaning to reality. This all happens first before reality is interpreted or reacted to. They fill the gaps of perception with perspective and prediction. Okay. And it happens unconsciously, subconsciously. You get the effect of what your mind has been programmed to associate the phenomenon with. Okay. All that happens before direct experience has a chance to correct any false impressions. And I use various characters in this chapter: an unnamed warrior, the three magi that come and visit Jesus in the Christmas story, when he's born. These three creations called Trey, Will, and Sage, which represent tradition, free will, and wisdom, to demonstrate the notion that there are infinite paths that sometimes lead to the same summit, but often one correct orientation being up the mountain. There are many different paths that could lead to the summit. And tradition may say there's one path. Wisdom may say there's infinite paths. Both of those can be taken to their extremes. And free will, of course, gives you the ability and capacity to find your happy medium in that. So the question amounts to: at what point do stories and repeated impressions start shaping the way a person sees both truth and even themselves?
I love this whole where we're going with this, right? And when you cut out, I was showing people that I wore my Final Fantasy shirt, right? The
Yeah.
original NES. But why I bring this up, it resonates with this question as well, is because RPGs, that category of games, had such a huge impact in my childhood. And it relates to the inner storyteller, to natural law, to all these mythos and stories across many traditions. When do stories start having an effect on our lives? Very early on. Very early on. I mean, I would say I would say from, I'm going to go as far as saying from birth, there are
Mhm.
mental faculties and metaphysical categories as the brain slowly develops. Because I agree with you, this is an inherent ability that the brain does. It's a supercomputer, and it's crunching all the data, and it's applying meaning to everything that it's through all intake. Now, the questioning that meaning and what this possibly means is very important, and this is where we kind of go into more of a spiritual and more adept functioning of a human being itself. But I would say the effect of that happens very young on different levels. I would definitely say it is a gradient. All you have to do is observe a young child, right? Even before they can even crawl, they're looking at everything. Everything is very awe-inspiring. Curiosity is one of the things I would say that kind of points to evidence of this, of stories, right? We are naturally curious. And of course, the later of the formative years, and then coming into even the coming of age or adolescence, right? The stories are already developing in one's own mind. I mean, imaginative worlds and friends as young kids, this is what is happening, right? We are developing
Absolutely.
stories, and the stories are pulling these meanings and these characters into our own personal story arc, even though it's very early on, but still it is there. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, man, I very early on, I would say.
Very good answer. And yeah, you mentioned at the beginning of your answer that the inner storytelling is a natural, inherent thing that the brain does.
Hmm.
I would widen that lens a little bit and say, I think it's something that the spirit does. And even beyond what I would say the soul, I would say the actual eternal aspect of the living individual or growing consciousness that is behind the I am that I know, right? The I am that I don't know because it's unknowable, I believe, has direct contact with the inner storyteller.
Totally
It's a
agree with
little,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
little
absolutely. I
out
would I
there.
would change my wordage and align with that 100%. The brain is just a hardware, almost a vehicle for the spirit, for the soul to interface through itself. So
Right. Well,
yes.
it's in the world of effects, right?
Yeah.
The physical brain is in the world of effects. So boom.
Yep.
So part four, I get into a real life example of sorts. Part four is called Candace Owens. We talked about some of the independent media or the journalism in the podcasting world. I am both a natural law connoisseur and a Candace Owens huge fan. And I'm
Okay.
proud of that. And I don't hide it from the natural law community, and I don't hide it from my Democrat friends. I'm black in America, so I got a bunch of them. Because to me, whether what she says about specific topics aligns with how somebody thinks or whatever, Candace, not mainly as a political figure, but is an example of what it looks like when someone learns how to say no to power structures with real cost to their life, to their livelihood, to their safety, to their family's well being, to say no to power in a very real and very consistent way. And for those out there that may be like me who have been keeping up with her for a while, but also maybe familiar and getting your grammar up in the natural law world for a while, we're getting very excited. The further she moves away from politics, the further she moves away from, let's say, the way that her younger self used religion, the happier we get, because we're like, you are right there, Candace. You right there, and we fucks with you. So anyway, I'm gonna get to my question because I like to disclaim when it comes to Candace because she's such a polarizing figure.
Mm-hmm.
But I fucks with her, and I like watching how, like right now, as the biggest podcaster in the world and one of the biggest in world history, she's like, yeah, nah, I'm so done with politics. I'm not left or right. Uh, um, Things that you just would not expect her to say when, um, 4 years ago, 3, 4 years ago, right? And especially before Charlie Kirk died.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I say whether people agree with her is not the point. The point is she represents a kind of public refusal that comes with real cost in pursuit of truth. She's been a huge source of inspiration for my own story, and I think she's a good example of saying no, the lost word to the order-giving class, and saying no to evil. When someone publicly steps out of alignment with what we are supposed to think, what we are supposed to say, what does it do to cause such a strong need for the institutions in power to react so emotionally like they do with her or some other independent media figures of today?
Yeah, and I'm fairly up to date with Candace, and I've been following her whole journey, especially very closely since the Charlie Kirk incident, and I very much enjoy her mentality and how she's been operating. And so many people will get into the conspiracy realms of her husband background, etc. Yeah, okay, sure, but aside from that, how she is functioning on her podcast episodes, what she's doing and what she is saying, if there was someone that I could have a sit down conversation with and talk about anarchism and natural law, it would be Candace Owens. She's an anarchist that she doesn't really know it yet, right? But
Real talk,
she has
Will.
said all the time she's anti politics, right? So she is someone that has seen the cause and effect factors of what politics and government is, and she just says it's all BS. She's recognized that, and on many aspects, like you said, using the lost word of no, and I think that is inspiring for sure. From those aspects, it's just she is a great example of someone that we ultimately need to reach because she has the door busted wide open with that large platform, and she's right on the cusp. She's really just missing some crucial information
Yeah.
that she
If,
could
if,
have like that. She's getting into the occult. I think it's heavily skewed from a religious perspective, but she's
yeah.
understanding. She's walking that path. It's like, Candace, you're almost there. You understand that the whole system is being ran by the dark occult forces. She gets that, and she says stuff like that. So yeah, I forgot
Right,
what your
right
actual
in their
question was,
faces too.
but
Well, you answered it. You answered
okay.
it. Yeah. Basically, well, no, you did. Well, I guess you answered something that I was interested in. My question was, what makes the institutions in power react so emotionally? But I think your answer actually was a little bit better than that question.
Oh,
Anyway.
but yeah, but just to add something real quick,
Hmm.
right? That's the last thing they want to see people do. Align themselves with truth, but also act on that.
Hmm.
And that's why
Because
no is the lost word and it is the phrase of ultimate power. When you can tell a control system no, despite of any fear. I mean, that's what true courage is, right? Doing something in spite of fear. The threat still
yeah.
remains, but you're doing it anyways because it's the right thing to do.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And one of those crucial aspects that I think I want to respond so much that you said, but we still have six questions. Um, one of those aspects that I believe she would dive straight into if she got the grammar to dive into it is the religion of monetary value. And I break down my beef with money and money systems into this broad concept that I call the religion of monetary value. And I don't call it the religion of money because I don't have a beef with general accounting or keeping track of either what you've done or what you've given somebody. If the express intention was to get something in return and you were both okay with that, I don't think there's anything wrong with a system of accounting or a system meant to document fair dealings between human beings. I think that's fine. I don't think it's necessary for the work and knowledge to be gained and done, but I do think it's completely fine and within the moral, you can do it if you want realm of things that we can do.
Agreed.
Part five is where I talk about money not just as a tool, but as something much deeper in modern life. For many people, money is tied to survival, value, safety, status, and identity. This has never actually been true because it has no value. It cannot actually affect status of anything, and it can't be eaten or used to build houses or any type of survival. It's not connected to survival, and it's not a person. It's not an identity. So I treat it more like a faith system structure than a neutral instrument or a tool for trade. I also talk about how in the agenda of making people addicted to being adherents to the religion of monetary value, and I do mean addicted because we fight against not being an adherent of this religion, right? We fight against it with like we will fight our family members in the human family. So I also talk about how confusion is a part of the trap, not just fear of loss or envy of someone else's stuff. The money system is confusing due to it being based on completely nonsensical monetary value idea. So my question is, and you haven't read the material, so it's all good, but you know what I'm saying? My question is, how do you see money shaping people and what happens to a person when survival is tied to the participation in a system they know is not right?
Yeah, great question. And I see this kind of category really being a pitfall for a lot of the community, the freedom truth communities, meaning it being almost like a mental hang up and not having clarity there. And I will be the first one to admit that I've had issues with the monetary, the fiat system, right? And that's something that I've actively and have worked on in the past itself, right? I mean, sure, it is being used, and there's many distinctions. I totally agree with you, right? In a mode of exchange of energy exchange, absolutely, that's always going to be existing there.
Right.
But yes, as far as the fiat, which that word fiat from Latin, it means let it be done. When you put that in a survival mechanism, which is where ultimately they want the majority of people to be in, right? And that your choice, the majority of people, their choices are going to be dictated off self-preservation. due to fear. And of course, there's not just a straight black and white answer to that in a given situation. You obviously, the moral choice, the right thing to do, trumps it all, right? For sure. But would that be in the same case as your interactions with a police officer right in front of you, right? Where there could be a, function of life or death. And yes, you have to use discernment on that. But we need to get out of, when I say we, because I'm actively doing that, we need to understand that the monetary system is there and it can be utilized as a tool to get us in certain positions. It's a positioning tool is how I look at it, right? And should it exist in the future in a free society in its current incarnation? It absolutely will not. If when we move to a free society, right, there'll be
Right.
other modes. I mean, gratitude itself is a form of currency, high form of currency. So yeah, we need to move past that, and this is something that I think a lot of the psyops and events keep people in that state of the monetary delusion and that survival mindset.
Yeah, yeah. I got from Mark Passio that idea that the mother of all religions is the religion of monetary value, and the father of all religions is the religion of man's law or religion of authority.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely. Because we're talking about the control of energy, the control of behavior.
yes, yes, indeed. Um, Thank you. Great answer. I don't even want to add anything. So, part six. Part six is called the resurrection. Part six is entirely a fictional story. This is where I move into the concepts of death. Oh, shout out to the pup. What's the pup's name?
This is Pocket.
Everybody say, "What's up, Pocket?" Pocket. That's a cute name.
I know he's a tiny little dude. This is my sidekick.
Yeah, is he old? He look a little older.
Yeah, his face, it used to be all black, and now see it's all
Oh wow.
gray.
Yeah.
He's I think 8 to 9,
Okay, you
so
getting there?
he's still got some years on him. But yeah, he's a Chiweenie, so he's Chihuahua Dotson. Whenever the neighbors, they have nice big property, but they have some
Mhm.
machinery they operate, and when they operate it, it generates a certain frequency, and
And
his
he's
anxiety
like,
just goes through the
yeah,
roof.
he's like,
So he's
Dad.
like, "Yep, dad's lap."
So this is where part six, the resurrection, is where I move into the concepts of death, grief, fear, real courage, and transformation through my fictional creations, Corey and Farah. I wanted this chapter to show that truth is not always something people arrive at through argument and through grammar. Sometimes it has to become lived, suffered even, and experienced before it becomes real in a different way. And because you haven't read the book yet, I'm not asking you to respond through my stories and my characters, Corey and Farah. But here is my question nonetheless. What role do you think suffering, loss, confrontation with death seem to play in human awakening?
Oh man, you got some. These questions are fantastic. I consider myself a student not only of life but of death as well. I've experienced a near-death experience when I was a child. I've experienced a lot of death from friends, family members, parental, my mom, etc. Now, this category in correlation to evolution, to awakening, is really goes hand in hand. The quote, the adage, suffering is the ultimate teacher. Yes,
Right.
it is, but that does not have to mean that it is the only pathway itself.
Mhm.
Pain is inherent in this experience, right? I mean, the birthing process is painful in on by divine creation, right? It's a trauma bond between child, mother, and father being assistant, right? So pain is inevitable. We can't get out of that, and that could be good or bad pain. When the pain is unbearable, then you have suffering. Now, even in the definition of suffering, it means to choose. So suffering itself is through a choice. Now, whether that is conscious or unconscious, or through the subconscious, which
Yeah.
the human condition of slavery is suffering itself, but it's self-induced, meaning the majority of people are choosing certain actions leading to a certain condition. So we
You
are
don't get
choosing
slavery
this.
without obedience.
Exactly. 100%. So does it have to be full-blown suffering? No, it doesn't. But can and will are completely different situations. Now, I do believe, in my own opinion, I'll make that distinction, that we are so ensconced in this system. Once you kind of have an accurate perception of how deep and how long it's been going down, there's going to be immense pain for us to pull us out of this hole, just to get us back up to par. Immense pain. Now, suffering, that's going to be up to courage and willpower and care.
Right.
100%. So that is still let to be seen. But I will say this, even though you have the social engineers, you have our individual choices that are creating and influencing this condition, you still have nature, or the divine creation itself. And when the lessons aren't being learned, there is what I call a celestial immune response. And we've seen this throughout in the historical record as well, where there are catastrophes, planetary catastrophes, where it's just whoop, global suffering for a whole species, right?
Well,
Almost as a reset.
and that's what a lot of the historians that go super deep, they all say something. They have differences in opinion on when the last one was, but pretty much all of them say that human beings have seen at least two
Yeah.
worldwide planetary catastrophes that took everybody out. And like in the second Matrix movie, the architect says, if you go through this door, we're gonna kill all of you, but you are gonna pre-select 23 humans to be, reinserted into the new Matrix and to have their bodies preserved and kept, healthy or whatever. And we're gonna reset this whole thing. I'm gonna make a new Matrix. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna, you know, reset to 23 humans
Yeah.
in the Matrix movie, which is, I mean, if you don't know that the people that were involved in the distribution and creation and whatnot of those three movies, especially the first three, were onto something when it comes to the real leadership of this world, then I don't know where you've been at. But that movie contains a
Yep.
lot of truth.
Yep, 100%. And most people nowadays, they've learned through suffering, and then many of them are going to learn through definitive suffering, meaning their life will be almost wasted or sacrificed in a sense, because they just won't pick up on the patterns, the cause and effect, and they won't learn that lesson. And that is absolutely unfortunate. When we start to shift the collective consciousness and the awareness, this is what an oral tradition and paired with parenting is all about, right? That stewardship, where morality, ethics, courage, and the understanding of natural law and the self, this is all that's encompassed in the raising of children, where that becomes a tradition. Then you
Yeah.
have pain, yes, that can be transmuted to great personal empowerment, but suffering is definitely mitigated.
Yeah.
It's the inverse right now. So
Yeah. And self-induced through lack of
100%.
self-respect.
That's right.
Part 7 is called The Hidden Leaf. In part 7, I shift into more direct examples of popular fiction, things like Iron Man, Bambi, the Disney classics, things like that. And I get into some solution-based thinking. I start asking what it looks like when people stop waiting to be rescued by what's called the savior figure, which is in a lot of popular fiction, especially anime. But also, I mean, just across the board, savior figures, and begin creating better patterns of behavior that result in a better condition for us all. I move into how children, specifically how major motion pictures uh, what children watch in the form of major motion pictures imprint harmful ideas into their minds about family, about death, about heroism, because I want the philosophy to touch real life and not just stay in the abstract. So I ask you, Mr. Keller, the lie killer, how much do popular fiction, movies, shows, novels, comics, and the like matter in shaping the next generation and what they will see as normal?
A huge amount of influence is in that realm, right? Millions and billions of dollars in the entertainment industry, and that's intentional, right? That will always exist as part of their main mode operandi of influence because of that simple factor that you described, stories influence, right? Like I talked about earlier, how role playing games had a huge influence in my childhood itself, right? And that's my first initiation of the mythos, the hero's journey, archetypes, the elements, all of this kind of stuff that I learned. The question is, how much of that impacted my journey to where I'm at now? And huge influence and impact. So when we see these stories and these attributes and characters in film, stories, comics, video games, all of this kind of stuff, it is there to imprint, to influence itself on whoever is viewing it. And someone that doesn't understand the vehicle and how the self operates, then that imprint could have a very long lasting effect to the point where you are judging, or the patterns that you are seeing in life, how you are discerning reality, it is stemmed from those imprints, right? And now that could be, there could be some pros and cons. I mean, I think nowadays it's very much negative aspects that are there, but this can easily be observed because we mentioned The Matrix. We see these films, The Matrix, V for Vendetta, any of these movies that has a strong hero or heroine archetype that's fighting a oppressive system, and we cheer those people on. Most of the viewers, right? They cheer the hero on to destroy the system of slavery, right? But they can't recognize the patterns within the reality itself,
and,
within
and
their own
even in the
life.
stories and even in the stories themselves, right? In the Matrix, the machines won years ago. This is the sixth iteration of the Matrix, where Keanu Reeves is the Neo of choice by the architect. The sixth one. So this is likely 100, maybe more years of straight computer simulation living, and a couple people breaking free and a lot of people trying but getting shut down by the agents. And never did the entire population say, no, I choose eternal life, meaning I choose death over slavery. Never. Same thing with Star Wars, the Empire or whatever. Generations of just growing and more corruption and more exploitation, more and more taking over of non-wealthy planets, whatever that means, whatever.
Yeah,
And then finally, this small subset of people can come and be a savior figure. I just wanted to add to that because that's a
that's
big
right.
big thing in my own heart when it comes to the children. So we
Yeah,
got three questions left, or three
cool.
chapters left, and I don't want to hold you for too long. I also don't want to hold the audience for too long. I know y'all enjoying yourself. Go ahead, put a couple things in the chat. Somebody tell Will he has earned his gray hair in the chat for me.
Same with Pocket, huh? Pocket.
Yeah,
We both
him and
earned these
Pockets out
grays.
here.
It's
Uh,
interesting you say that, because when my daughter was very young, she's like, "Dad, you're getting gray hairs," and I said, "Every gray hair is a story, a certain thing about my life." So funny.
Exactamundo. But I don't want to hold you guys for too long. I know after about an hour you get a little antsy. So let's move into part eight's question and whatnot. And I gotta talk to you again, Will. You gotta come back to the show.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Let's do it.
Um, part eight is entitled "Onions Have Layers." Part 8 is about the fact that conditioning is layered. So we have biological triggers, we have psychological triggers, we have biopsychological triggers. And then on the super duper sub, levels, when it comes to weather manipulation and certain technological ways that they get at us, we have electromagnetic layers that can be influenced, that touch our behavioral patterns. We have a whole bunch of stuff. All of it comes down to what stories we associate with phenomena. It is not usually one lie or one institution or one set of families or one trauma that contributes to our condition, to the condition of the human family right now. It's layer on top of layer on top of layer. We have language, symbols, habits, habitats, emotional associations, posture, culture, fear, repetition, and the like. Over time, all of these things feel natural. They feel like they're a part of nature, and we start to believe that the way that we operate is just the way that it is because God willed it that way, and that's never, ever, ever true. God willed it so that we are programmable and so that we can program the outcome that we see as a family. We are just kept from this knowledge, in my humble opinion. How do you think, or how do you help people understand that conditioning is layered in your work? And what do you think are some of the hardest layers for sincere people to notice within themselves?
Yeah, fantastic question, and I agree with it 100%. It is absolutely layered. I would even say that the category of occultism is dissecting these layers, right? The symbolism, correlative thinking, situational awareness, natural law, the principles of nature, and so many people never really question that initial storytelling, those layers from when they were young, right? We see this where it's like, well, you know, my parents did this, so that's why I'm doing this. Like, you keep seeing that excuse, and oh, we've always had government, or we need some kind of government, right? You see these excuses that clearly show that someone has not even looked within their own line of storytelling, or what they believe and why they believe it. So I think some of the probably the most profound aspects is understanding psychology in itself in relation to nature, right? So, I mean, the reason why role-playing games had such a big impact on my life when I'm like, 10, 11, 12, is
Yeah.
because I would actually go out into the real world, into nature, and had these correlations, something that I saw in a video game, and could experience it in reality in itself. And that had a profound effect on me, because then naturally I was asking, well, why does it do that? Or why is this like that? That question of why. And that's something that many people don't even get to. Why is the story being told? Why do you have this story, in context of its layers? And that's a state of mind that I think a lot of people even believe they are in, but not even close to it, right? This is
Right.
directly related to what true open-mindedness is, or high teachability. And many people aren't even in there, even people that consider themselves truth seekers.
Yeah.
And I've seen this directly to people when I talk about the belief in human authority or government being immoral and how it shouldn't exist, and they say the same phrase. Wow, I never even considered that. That is the type of question where it's like you're not considering, you're not looking at the layers of stories that you're telling yourself, right? So symbolism absolutely is a big one. But just asking that question of why.
Yeah.
Why these symbols? Why this way? Why
Yeah.
this method? Why we have this? Is now you're actually looking at the story from an aspect of creation, how it was created, its intention, and you're almost moving from you're just reading what someone is giving you to now you are creating your choose your own adventure, to use an
Yeah.
analogy.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Do you throw away the apple or do you eat it and say thank you? Press X or press circle.
yeah, man, for sure.
um, yeah, 1,000%. As a matter of fact, you made me want to read something from the book itself as a little preview to the audience that jives exactly with what you just said. At the very end of the book, I say this in a random place that starts around 265, page 265. Okay. I say, one more thing. Stop believing yourself all the time. Learn how and why you occasionally delude yourself because you do. Allegedly, maybe, perhaps. Not a formal accusation, but statistically likely. Just stay curious about your own blind spots. Sorry for the sirens, y'all. Uh, I don't live in in the nicest place. Stay curious about your own blind spots. That curiosity alone will take you farther than most people are willing to go. With that said, I love you for reading this and watching the series. And yet we delude ourselves.
Yeah,
We participate in our own false ideas. But
yeah.
part 9 is
Hmm.
entitled The Author of Authors. Part 9 asks one of the deepest questions in the entire work, which is if so much of human thought and behavior is indeed shaped from the outside in, then who is really authoring the human experience? This is where I start looking more closely at symbols. For instance, I use the letter A, especially the way symbols can trigger emotional and behavioral response before people are able to slow down enough to examine the reaction within themselves. I also get into actual solutions like food forests and grounding and homeschool, stuff like this. From your perspective, Mr. Keller, Mr. Will Keller, what does it really mean to become the author of one's own story?
Oh man, yes. Before I answer this question, just kind of reminding the viewers and the audience that I have not read Soul's new book. So this is going to be great to after this interview, right? This session to go and actually read it and be like, "Oh man, that's really just cool making those connections." So what that means to me is that cuz essentially we're talking about being a master of your own perception, right? Really becoming the storyteller within your own life, understanding that we function in this twofold, right? The inner and the outer. I mean, our percept, how we view the world, the lens by which we view the world, right? And that is like the main resource and influential mechanism that the social engineers want, right? Because if you can control or influence perception or the stories or the narratives, then of course people are going to make choices and take actions and behaviors that are in favor of those influences, right? So understanding that we need to master or be on that path of undoubtedly being in control of our own narrative, our own stories, our own perception, understanding that our aperture matters. Aperture from like a camera analogy, you have the camera, you from the inside of the camera, it is taking a picture or a snapshot of the external world. But when you raise or lower your aperture, that dictates on how much light comes in. And therefore, the image that you're taking is either going to have a certain clarity or a certain distortion to it. So of course, we by doing this internal work and understanding some of these concepts that we have talked about in this episode today, and I'm sure all of Soul's book, this is going to allow someone to really be that author, that have that ownership of one's own perception or their own camera in the analogy, right, where you can control the aperture and you understand the influences, the layers of stories and all of the attributes that come in there, ultimately to make clear choices. I think absolutely it comes down to that clarity
Yeah.
of the world and ourselves.
And ourselves. Yep. And it's
Yep.
of the world and ourselves. And I always bring it back to and us and we and what we're doing and ourselves, because I'm like, I'm so clear, right, on the fact that without our collective obedience, without the ability for them to point at one of us and say, stop him from resisting, go stop that group from resisting, go shoot that house up and bomb that house, because that house is, well, they wouldn't say resisting, they would say a threat to national security or whatever, go do that. They can only do that because of our level of obedience and our level of willful blind obedience,
Yep.
willful stupidity, if you will.
That's the only
Because
reason
we
why
have
it exists.
Right, because
Because
we have
people are
we have
choosing
shared,
to take those actions.
absolutely, and incentive, and we
Mm-hmm.
have shared objectives as a human family, right? We have well documented shared objectives to share food better and to share building techniques better and to be there for each other in a better way, outside of culturally commingling and intermarrying and stuff like that. We just have shared objectives, shared obligations, even on the moral side of things. Not that the universe is going to puppet make us do, but obligations that if we don't respect them, then we disrespect ourselves and we disrespect our stated and documented objectives. So in that, we have to move away from the realm of effects and the plane of effects into the plane of causality. And being the author, in my view, is causing the effect instead of reacting to the result. And then we
Yeah.
have part 10.
Mm-hmm.
I said a lot. Did you want to respond to that real quick before I move on?
No, that was fantastic. I just kind of wanted to concur with you, right? I mean, even looking at the word universe, that one song, that one story, and we are the co-creators of this story. And like Nick put down in the chat, stewards of story.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Um, oh, I don't see the chat, do I? Oh yeah, I do. Nick Hans. Oh, what's up, y'all? What's going on? I didn't even know y'all was here. I couldn't see the comments the entire time. Part 10. Part 10 is entitled The Final Battle. Okay, this is where I reveal the entire book was leading up to this fact, and the entire book plus this sort of fact, at the end of chapter 10, that I put into clear terms, is what I think is my contribution to the philosophy of natural law. This is not something new under the sun, but it's like my personal framework, a framework that came through me that I don't believe I've ever, heard come through anybody else in the way that it's coming through me, to the philosophy of natural law and to the community of freedom seekers worldwide. So the whole book the whole work builds toward this idea that the deeper battle is not just out there, it's also in here, and first in here. It's the battle between impressions and principles, or impression and principle. By impression, what I mean is what gets pressed into our psyche and our, bodily, like held bodily memory, as well as our emotional memory and whatnot. What gets pressed into us quickly, emotionally, socially, and repeatedly, what's reinforced, right? These are impressions that we carry, that we hold, and that program the inner storyteller that then programs our output or our behavior in accordance with these impressions. And by principle, what I mean is what is actually true, even when it is harder, quieter, more subtle, and more costly to act on and live by. So my question, because again, everybody, he hasn't seen the chapter yet. He doesn't know how I break it down in the material. But what do you think, or why do you think it is so hard for people to live by principle, even when some parts of them already feel conflicted and know better? And then the follow up is, and what do you think helps a person strengthen that part of themselves over time?
Yeah, great final questions. Um, to use an analogy, people need to get off the audiobooks and really hold the book, sit down outside in nature and read for themselves. I now I'm using an analogy.
Go touch grass.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, well, for sure. I mean, so essentially people are being told certain things, right? And it's not until they actually turn that awareness to this category, and I'll elaborate a little bit, right? I mean, we talked about Candace Owens and she's doing some good work, and there's a bunch of other people that are speaking narratives. They're telling stories into the world. And I think so many people have been conditioned and programmed to just listen to these stories, to be fed the audio book of life or what is going on in the world, or even their own journey, right? I mean, just look at, you say a certain type of word and the algorithm shifts on all your social media platforms, and now you got all these ads for products and stuff. And I mean, sure, that's marketing, but so many people are just on this carousel or this conveyor belt that is they're being spoon fed these certain events and this pathway. They're being led. And it's only until we lead ourselves where we kind of stop, drop, and think, to use, a phrase that my father said growing up. Stop, drop, and think. Stop means eliminate all the noise just
Yeah.
for a brief moment, right? Drop, ground yourself, and then think. Think about what you're actually doing. Think about the stories or the narratives that you hold or that you were being fed, or the stories you want to tell. And that's obviously where the principles come in, right? These are the
Yeah.
stories that we want to tell about our own lives, and co-create the story of life itself from the authorship of first principles, moral principles. And
Yeah.
people just don't consider that philosophical or that moral or metaphysical level, that chapter of the story, right? They just want the cliff notes. They want to chat GPT what the book summary. It's like, no, we need to get deep, deep into our own psyche and what is the meaning of it all. The meaning of life, the meaning of
Yeah.
your life, his life, her life, what is going on in the world. And those questions, those big questions, are really propagated as unknowable or relative. And I've always said for the last few years that no, you can absolutely know them because there's an objective answer, but that doesn't mean the totality. But we can know the foundation, the elementary of those, and that is the starting point, right? That's the prologue where we need
Yeah.
to start from and then continue. And it's just that care and willpower of asking those big questions. I think people are just either scared or intimidated or just downright absolutely just NPC, to use another role playing game.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I completely agree with everything you just said there, most definitely.
And that's where the pain and suffering comes in,
Yeah.
right? If you don't do that, then be prepared for suffering within your life, within not only the individual life, but obviously the collective human family. That suffering is definitely going to come in because it's a choice of repeating pain, or
Yeah.
we can transmute the pain itself and learn those lessons. Break
What's in
that
your hand?
cycle. Oh, it's
A feather. Okay, feather.
it's a hawk feather. Yeah, I found it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
It
actually
was
a
moving
pretty
so
rare
fast. I
feather.
was like, what the hell is that? I'm sorry. Yeah, are you like swatting a fly? Like, what's going on?
Abracadabra. No, Harry Potter phrases.
um, I'm completely on board with everything that you said, and the material is awaiting your gaze, good sir. I am so looking forward to our follow up conversation after you've got a chance to review the material. And I'll just tell you, and I'll tell the audience, I do not think this work stops at the book or the video series. I think that this work, as far as my, like I said, my unique framework of the inner storyteller, which talks about something that other researchers and deep thinkers, Carl Jung, this random dude, Robert Scheinfeld,
Mm.
a bunch of people have talked about this machine like extremely fast association mechanism in the psyche, which to them and to me feels deeper than just the subconscious mind, bigger, even more powerful than just the subconscious mind within a single lifetime. Because as I go into in part one, as well as when I revisit it in, I believe, part nine, the inner storyteller is not just something that is acting upon you when you're awake in this life. The inner storyteller is a part of God's creation. Therefore, it's here from the beginning at a collective and at individual levels. And, I don't personify it. I don't say that the inner storyteller is what awakens to truth and starts to change itself. I think it's more of a mechanism kind of thing. So the way that I speak about it and philosophize about it is as a machine that can be rewired and um, reoriented to kick out stories and associations that lead one more to truth than away from truth, and or programmed to make people associate blind obedience with maturity and adherence to certain religions as safety. And that's I think is some of the biggest impressions that we get from the jump is safety means listening to these people, raising my hand, staying in line, wearing the right colors, saying the right ideas, trying to move up the ladder in the right institutions and not creating my own necessarily. The hero is reserved for the exceptional, and I am just the little guy waiting to be saved. All of these things, I think, are not just operating on us in this lifetime. I think these are stories that have been programmed into the collective human inner storyteller over the last few millennia. We can limit it even to like 6 or 7 thousand years. The last 6 or 7 thousand years since Sumer was given all of this technology by these beings from the sky or from another dimension, wherever they came from. They gave them all this technology and all of these things. And now for the last 6, 7 thousand years, we've been running this program of governance.
Yep.
Of government. Governance is self-governance. Government. Mind control. Not self-steering, but steering the mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
Gubernare, to steer, to control, to move at your own will, and mentis, the mind. Right? We've been running that story ever since, and I think that is why, a part of the reason why it's so seductive and so like almost automatically run with by the entire human family. Like you said, we need government. Oh, look at human nature. If we don't have a government, then what stops you from stabbing me? How about I don't want to stab nobody? I don't wake up with I'm gonna stab a motherfucker today. That's
Yep.
just it's not in my
Exactly.
heart. And I don't believe it's in yours either. One of the most powerful, I'm gonna shut up after this last point. One of the most powerful books a motherfucker can read, excuse my cussing, is The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. In The End of All Evil by Jeremy, it's because of The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke that I decided to write Culture Control. And it was really this one line. I think it's even toward the beginning of the book, but it might be toward the end. I can't remember. It's been a while. Where he says that you probably would never do some of the things that these really evil people do. And it just put into my mind the reality that I wouldn't. Now would I, let's say, I got a magic wand. Would I probably have a lot of sex or something like that? It depends on what age I am when I get the magic wand. But would I ever, at any time in my life, do some of the war crimes and the rape and the theft and violence that these people do? Never. And I don't think Will would either. I don't think super crazy nice people like Jerry C. Geraldine's. I'm not gonna try to say her last name. I'm gonna say it wrong.
Capizuto.
Thank you, Cabazudo. Would ever do anything evil like that? Do we have vices? Everybody has a vice. Would that get abused a little bit if we had buku money and power out of nowhere? Maybe, perhaps. It's very likely, statistically speaking. We are weak. We're a little weak to those things. But does that automatically translate into all of this mass hatred and all of this mass murder and mass theft? Absolutely not. There's something deeper there that both causes and sustains this behavior. And I think it's older than the whole world being poisoned. I think it's something spiritual, demonic even. So so that's my kind of introduction into even thinking and writing along these lines. Is the end of all evil reminded me that I'm not pre-programmed with a human nature that's evil bound, and I'm not automatically, if given power, going to do the same things. And most people wouldn't, but a few people would. And it just so happens that in our collective story, it seems those few people got wind of hiding natural law from others faster than we got wind of spreading it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think we went wrong. And I don't think it's more complicated than that. What say you?
Everything you said was very, very well spoken, and I agree with that, man. And this is why I really dig in this category, because there's multiple ways that we can, you started the episode, right? You have the mountain peak, the summit, which is truth, and there's multiple pathways that you could take to get to that same spot. And same thing with categories, expressing certain categories or pathways of information to lead people, or to educate people on truth itself. And I think this is a fantastic category, and I agree with you. These systems have been given to us. They've been programmed and conditioned and embedded into every aspect of our life, and that goes into a whole nother topic and category of human intervention, even down to the worship gene that
Ah,
that we can go down to, right? But it's like a category that I talk about heavily is animism. And if we do a round two after I read this book, I already know animism is going to be on the tip of my tongue, because when you're talking about this mechanism by which we can use to understand and to come to know greater levels of awareness, or wider apertures, right? That is
mhm.
animism right then and there. If you remove all the books, remove everything out of the picture, we still have our own faculties, and we still are going to question, discern the meaning that we see internally and internally. And that is why not all, but the majority of indigenous cultures and animistic cultures, pre-Christian, pre-Abrahamic religions, most of them were oral traditions. They wouldn't even write it down. They had no need for writing, because they spoke everything, and it was through mythos and storytelling and mythology. And that's what mythology is: myth, stories with logic. You can learn and educate the youth through stories
Right,
themselves, because truth is encoded within there. So
right.
as we talked about early on in this episode, right, that how there's a hint of truth in stories through religion, etc. Those oral traditions had a greater body of truth themselves, and adding deception wasn't even in that forefront.
Hmm.
So there's a lot that can be said there through the lens of animism itself. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And the older ways pretty much boil down to observing or observation, whereas the more modern ways come down to interpretation. Both deal with story. So you observe the story of the tree, you plant the seed, or you observe the tree dropping the seed and you watch it. Maybe you help it a little bit, you give it a little extra water, but maybe you don't, and you observe it and you gain something from the lived experience of observing the truth. Whereas modern, modern approach is more so you get the text and then you get the interpretations through speaking with the priest class of your day and your locale. Um, and I do think there's a lot more to be gained in observation than there is in being given an interpretation. I don't think that the whole story is an observation, just like I don't think the whole story can be an interpretation. But I do think that um, observation is closer to be certain principles, certain values, right? Being present, um, not saying too much, right? Interpretation requires wording and diction and precision and certain things that you got to just talk and you got to be good at it. You got to practice talking, 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 talking. Whereas observation and being present with what is and what was, the result of what was and is now, the truth is it cuts deep. It hits different, as my generation would say. It hit different, and I love it. I love this entire
yeah.
conversation, man.
Well, just to add something, just to interject
Yeah,
real quick before we
yeah,
wrap it up,
absolutely.
I would say actually one of the main differing factors from the modern times to pre-Abrahamic, the animist tradition was actually interaction. Observation absolutely was there, but every culture around the world understood relationship, that we are its direct experience in direct participation. It was one of the main tenets of their whole interaction. That's why, communing with the mountains, the streams, the land, the sky, each other, etc., the animals, all of that was all in their culture and tradition. And that's something that is lacking today, right? In the modern world, it's all about intake, and then people think they know or they can extract direct experience without doing the participatory ritual or experience itself,
Yeah,
right? So, and that is due to probably heavily of the technology world without the principles.
there we go. And a lot of our innovation and advancement and whatnot, if it came with the principles, it's a completely different story. AI included, weather
Yeah.
manipulation included. There's no rule in nature that says weather manipulation is automatically evil, because you're kind of playing with things that are already set to go a certain way. There is a way to do any category of thing, almost any category of thing. Now, not the transgressions, but outside of those transgressions, almost any category of thing, there's a good way, a moral way to do those things, individually or in groups,
Mm. Yeah.
but with principle. And principle, I'm gonna let you would be better than I would. How do we get to first things? How do we properly address the concept of principle? And this will close out the conversation.
Yeah, so principle, right? Principia meaning first things first, or chief in its etymology and definition, right? And ultimately first principles are they are that foundational operating mechanism, right? So and this is where natural law morality is so vital into for someone to know and understand and align with, right? Because your principles, whatever they may be, you're operating from those principles. And you look at the world nowadays, people are very emotionally reactive. They're operating from that reactiveness as a principle. When humanity starts to understand objective morality and they operate from those first principles, then we will start to see change. So essentially, when you read a book, the first principles are you read left to right, you start from the top, you go down to the bottom. What happens if you totally invert that? Good luck trying to understand it.
Right. You don't get coherence.
You got
Yeah.
to stick to the first principles. So,
Boom.
yeah. And then for us, that's natural law and morality, 100%.
Absolutely. And the final battle, y'all, is principle versus impression. Okay. Impression comes at you fast. It's reinforced by culture and rhetoric. It is emotional. It's loud. Whereas principle is subtle. It's still. It's quiet. Steady. You could say consistent. No, constant, not consistent. Impressions are consistent. Principle is constant. Okay, you
That's
can't
right.
shut off real truth and um, like behavioral understanding in alignment with truth. You can't shut that off. There's no off switch. So versus
Universal
impressions
principles.
change. They come and go. They impact you super heavy in this mood, in this emotional state. They don't impact you that much in this other emotional state. Principle is constant.
That's
Straight
right.
line.
And that's where it really comes into importance with, like the storytelling or the or authoring our perception, right? Because we're filtering information. Everything that we experience, all the information coming in, it's getting filtered through what we know or our principles, right? And it's the Stoic filtration system, or the three staves, right? Is it true? Is it moral? Is it useful? Like that's a mechanism of filtering information through discernment and introspection to discover what certain information means.
Absolutely.
So, oh man,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Well,
I'm
thank you
excited
so
to check
very,
out.
very
I'm
much.
excited to check out this new book, man.
Yeah, I know, bro. I know. Let me show the people the cover real quick.
Yep.
The cover art is done. The pre-order page should be done very soon. So if you're watching this and it's not live, right? You're watching the replay of this, click my link tree, linktree/ufuluchild, linktr.ee/ufuluchild, and look for that pre-order page. It's not done yet, but it's gonna be done very soon. So since we're recording this live, I don't know if it's next week or the week after, but it'll be there within a very short time. Let me go ahead and show you guys the title because I'm very share screen. Very, very happy about it. This is I said title, I meant the cover. This is the cover to the book, the new book, The Inner Storyteller. You have been conditioned to protect the very stories that keep you powerless. Soul
Oh man,
expression.
I love it. I love it,
The
man.
my life's work.
That fantastic, man. I appreciate you and all that you do, and your contribution to Funnel was awesome. You have fantastic music as well. So I'm looking forward to doing multiple, collaborations with you, man. So thanks for having me on your show, and I'm gonna dive into that book, man, and we can continue
Hey,
round
I'm,
two.
I'm excited. Let's do a round 2, round 3. Let's bring somebody. I would, man. Can I just be honest with you
Yeah.
on live here? I would be ecstatic to bring some of this work into some of the symbology work that Nate does.
Oh yeah.
Nate
Whew.
blew my whole mind with the Oculus presentation for Funnel 5. It was phenomenal. The visuals alone were phenomenal, but his breakdown, I found it super duper cool, and I have a mind to connect my philosophy, the story stuff, to the symbol stuff. So and then you have such a diction thing, a thing with word choice and looking into words and building concepts on top of each other concise way. I would love to come together with you and Nate and talk about, my work if there's ever a lifetime where he reads the book too.
Yeah, no, Nate, he's a personal friend of mine. His work is just outstanding. I mean, he's one of a
Oh, it's
kind.
insane.
His knowledge, he's extremely adept in multiple categories, and yeah, I would love to. So yeah, man, we'll just stay in communication. I hope the viewers enjoyed this and support you. Go to your website and check out your books.
Hell yeah. We'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out.
Thanks, y'all.